Well, whether it's ADHD, dyslexia, other learning challenges, some people have had brain injuries. I've met a ton of incredibly successful entrepreneurs like myself. Don't think of it as a disability. It's not. It's a superpower. The greatest weaknesses in our lives are almost certainly the greatest strengths that we have as well. And we got to lean into that because that's what creates grit, resilience, durability. That's the thing that's going to have them pushing through against all odds. And those are the kind of character traits that the absolutely extraordinary people in life shine with.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and today's guest is living proof that resilience and grit can transform any setback into massive success. He went from high school dropout to becoming a powerhouse sales leader and marketing expert, and his story is filled with many great lessons on growth, determination, and making the most out of every opportunity. His expertise as a strategic marketer has turned him into the secret weapon for small businesses aiming to punch above their weight and dominate their markets. Welcome to the show, the Wizard of Ads, Ryan Chute.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, brother. I'm excited to learn from you today. We do talk about marketing on the show from time to time, but a lot of times it's kind of high level. So we're going to pick your brain a little bit. But again, the show is about entrepreneurship. The show is about, connecting with your why, your purpose, driving forward, going through all that adversity that we know as entrepreneurs. It's inevitable. It's going to come our way. So I'd love to dive into your story. I want everybody to know that your website, your social media, it's all in the show notes. Any resources that you want to share with us for the audience, we can put those in the show notes for everybody. So keep it nice and easy for them to find it. They don't have to go hunting on your website.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man. So this is pretty cool. Your first taste of business goes all the way back to your days living back at the family farm, right? Mm-hmm. Taking care of chickens. You're hanging out at your grandfather's furniture store, which is a pretty cool story. Take us back to those days for a minute. What was, the 5-year-old, the 10-year-old Ryan like? What were your aspirations at that point in time?
When I was a little kid, I was playing hockey, as any good Canadian boy does, and enjoying all of the things that you'd expect in a rural town in Nova Scotia, Canada. It was pretty low key. It was farmers, and it was small town commerce and farm markets and all of the things that you'd expect. Great summers, in Canada you have 4 great seasons, so you're living the life. You're out at the cottage and doing cottage stuff and stomping around in the woods and picking ticks off yourself and all the other silly stuff that you do when you're a little kid, shooting BB guns and all the other silly stuff. But we also grew probably a half acre, an acre almost of garden, and my parents we're modest people. We're in a small town. It wasn't a big fancy thing. My grandfather was a great entrepreneur. My grandmother was a real strong female force in my life, and they really kind of taught me about kind of the nature of entrepreneurship, having just that entrepreneurial mind. So I've always kind of oriented to that. Well, back when I turned 47, I learned that I have ADHD. I got properly diagnosed, and I'd always had kind of a wondering about some of those challenges that I'd face with distraction and hyperfocus and some of these other things that kind of take me down rabbit holes. And I look.
Well, I want to stop you just for a second because I'm really interested in this whole. I call it the world of scene. I'm trying to imagine us. We're going back. There's 5-year-old Ryan. Yeah. Right. He's ice skating on the pond in the winter. Right. But summertime, you're working at the furniture store. Now, when I hear farm and then running a furniture store, right, I'm thinking, how much foot traffic is there in town? Yeah. I mean, was there enough foot traffic for it to stay busy enough? And how did the business actually do?
Yeah. Well, back in those days in that area, it was.
What are we talking, like the 80s?
Yeah, we're talking about the 80s as 5-year-old Ryan, 1980 as 5-year-old Ryan. Yeah. And there was foot traffic. There was they shopped the local stores. There was no Walmarts around. There was no big furniture stores. There were all small furniture stores dotted along the countryside. going up and serving kind of the local populations. We had appliances like fridges and stoves. We also had clothing. So there was just such a diversity.
Right. It was all shop local. So people would travel. They'd know, hey, that's the furniture store, right? And and so they'd go out of their way to go see it. Yeah.
And my family was big on like when electronics became a big thing. They were the first to release microwaves into the marketplace. They were the first to have color TVs. They were the first to have a video store before Blockbuster.
Probably
was
the family computer, right?
That's
family
it.
Computers, yeah.
These were all the things that
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Windows 95, man. You were king of the castle if you had that.
Radio Shack made this one called the Tandy 1000, baby. It was just like the best version of a Commodore 64.
Was it like a word processor, basically?
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So you started to talk a little bit about your ADHD, and then my ADHD jumped in and I interrupted you. But
as ADHD does, yes.
But part of your story, man, I do want a lot of people to hear this because this is really a cool thing. You have this great story of overcoming your challenges in the classroom, right? And now you know it's ADHD. At the time, nobody knew that. Nobody knew, you're just, hey, Ryan, stop it. Stop doing that. Stop talking. Stop bouncing off the walls, right?
Yeah.
You didn't know what was going on. You dropped out of high school at 17, and then you later went back. You got your GED. You passed with flying colors at that point. You went to college, and this was years later, right? You took some night classes. You graduated with honors, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is an incredible story. Here's someone who struggled in school, but then went back and made sure you kind of got it right. If there's anyone tuning in right now, maybe it's them directly or it's a parent that has a child struggling in school. What wisdom would you like to pass on to them from your story?
Well, whether it's ADHD, dyslexia, other learning challenges, some people have had brain injuries. I've met a ton of incredibly successful entrepreneurs like myself, and I'm blessed to count myself into that group that have struggled with things over the years, and a lot of times not knowing any better because that was just not the world we grew up in. Don't think of it as a disability. It's not. It's a superpower. It is the thing that the greatest weaknesses in our lives are almost certainly the greatest strengths that we have as well. And we got to lean into that because that's what creates grit, resilience, durability. That's the thing that's going to have them pushing through against all odds. And those are the kind of character traits that the absolutely extraordinary people in life shine with. In fact, we just released a documentary last year. It's on Amazon Prime today called Hero, about 4 different groups of people that did exactly that. A lot of them suffering with their varying degrees of challenges, including a lady named Mandy Harvey, excuse me. And Mandy is 100% completely deaf, and she is pitch perfect singer.
Wow.
Who won a national singing competition on the international stage. You can actually look it up, and I won't spoil the spoilers for you. But at the end of the day,
it's called Heroes. It's on Amazon.
Called Hero on Amazon Prime.
I'm gonna link that in the show notes.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very cool story.
Yeah, that is, dude. I'm all about like how you can turn your setbacks into your superpowers. I think of this little girl, Rosie Quinn. She was on the show with alopecia. She was 10 at the time when I interviewed her, and her mom wrote a book. And it was all about alopecia. And it was in the story, her hair runs away or goes on vacation. My hair went on vacation is, I think, the name of the book. And so it's like, why does my hair keep doing this? Why does it keep going away? Why is it running away? And, in the book, she makes these really cool, like creative headscarves, and she loves doing it. She's very creative. Awesome. And then, she ended up loving doing that. And then other people who had alopecia wanted them. Like they wanted the Rosie customized. So she created this little movement helping other people with it. And she felt so empowered and awesome that she had this community. And she would have never had that feeling or experience if she didn't have alopecia. And it's like, all alopecia is your hair doesn't grow. It's not like, I'm not saying it's not a big deal, because I'm sure people who don't have hair would love to have hair. But at the end of the day, you can live with it. You can make something of it. And she really did. At 10 years old, she had this. Obviously, the parenting had to be really strong there. But like at 10 years old, when I was interviewing her, I was just like, oh, my goosebumps. So yeah, man, you're like talking about how your setback became a superpower because not doing well in school, you went back, you did do well in school. And ADHD, means many different things. It's not everyone with it has the same exact thing. But you then got into sales. And I think that's pretty interesting too, because a lot of people get freaked out by sales. Maybe they had like a negative experience or a bad feeling from like that bad sleazy sales rep or whatever. But you got into it and you excelled in it. I don't know if it was right away, so I'd love to hear that part of the story. But what got you connected in that in the first place?
Well, as opportunity arises, the family furniture store, the place where you show up is in the place where you generate revenue. You're most relevant and have the highest value when you're the guy who's actually putting cash into the cash register. I got on the sales floor. I dropped out of high school, and I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, well, you're super young, and you look super young, and you act super young, because I was a punk, and it's clear that I'm have a reasonable level of intelligence, but at the end of the day, it's still like you're 18 years old and on a furniture floor where you're going to be selling to like, little Miss Ethel Jones who's buying a white little floral sofa or love seat. Yeah. And so I went to Dale Carnegie and I learned how to communicate better. That was my first foray into training, and I loved it. It was absolutely excellent. Then I jumped into John F. Lawhon's training, and then Harry J. Friedman's training, and then all of the.
So you just thought this out yourself, or is it something like Grandpa said, "Hey, maybe read a couple of these books or take some of these courses"? Or
yeah, my father and grandfather were both obviously in the business at that time, and absolutely feeding me with some sort of intent to get me pointed in the right direction and help me find my space. I'm also still in the Canadian Reserves at that point in time, so I've gotten my taste of discipline and discipline outside of my family dynamic, and all of those things kind of started feeding a more directed, more clear path Ryan.
You're kind of ready to grow up, right? I mean, I kind of remember having that moment when I was like 22 years old. I'm like, all right, this is like career mode, not working at the corner store, putting gas or, paying student loans, but like actually turning something into a career. And for me, sales was that too. Yeah. I didn't wake up one day thinking I'm going to be a sales rep, but it kind of, I call it bit by the sales bug, because I realized I was good at it.
Yeah.
I started making some really good money. I was 25 years old, making a decent salary that year. And most of it was commission.
Yeah.
And you realize, hey, but why am I good at this? Oh, it's because I love helping people out. Yeah. You get back to that again.
Yeah.
And you realize, sales is the process of it. You got to do a presentation, you ask for an exchange of their money for your product. There's a transaction, but it's not transactional selling. Typically a higher end, furniture, stuff like that. You're taking them through a sales process. So you started to learn that. You saw it first, right? I'm sure you saw it. You witnessed it happen when you're 5, 10, 15 years old. And then you're like, I want to learn from Dale Carnegie and some of these guys, learn some of the strategies so I could be really good at this and actually make a living doing it, which is pretty cool. Something I saw on your website, Ryan, I really like this. I know it's a little bit more marketing based, but I think it lands with me right now thinking about your personality. It almost sounds like you were making a distinctive choice to step into that next version of yourself. The quote on your website says, "Be distinctive, not just different." Can you expand on that idea?
Yeah, that's later learnings in my life from an extraordinary researcher named Byron Sharp, who wrote a book called How Brands Grow, and he's from Australia, and just an extraordinary individual. Great lessons I've learned from him, and branding is who you are, both as a person and as a culture within your businesses, and culture is your brand. So what you choose to tolerate and what you choose to allow to happen around your initial and ongoing intentions are what you get out of life. So my brand was always, the Ryan Chute brand was like, I'm going to step into this thing. And I remember the day. I'm walking back. A friend had come in from high school. I was confident. I was certain that this was just a done deal, and that there's no way in the world that they'd be going anywhere else. They're just going to come and buy this thing from me, and I'm counting my commissions before they hatch, right? And I check the inventory, it's in stock, and I can get it to them right away. And we're very, very reasonably priced, as is everyone else. And ultimately, I find out the next day that I lost the sale. And it was at that moment that I realized I will never count another commission in my life. I do not care how much I make. And funny thing, back in those days, I was, $29,000 a year in income. I had not sold the most amount of product in the store as far as total sales goes. Another guy had by about, $100,000 or $200,000, but he had made $25,000. And it was just because I had sold products that had a slightly higher commission on them, and I felt pretty proud.
So he sold more base revenue, but you had higher commissions because the margins were better on those products. Not that you did that intentionally, but that's just how it worked out.
Just happenstance. And I thought, I'm kind of a big deal. Like, I'm thinking, like, for a young whippersnapper punk that everyone is tolerating, as
maybe they didn't say it directly to you, but the school system said you're not good enough. Basically.
Right. So I'm telling myself that I am. And there's a bit of that comes from a family dynamic. And when I say a bit, I mean a lot. So at the end of the day, I'm thinking, and then we get this manager. So the first pinnacle point was Rhonda and realizing I will never count commission again. The second inflection point in my sales career came when a manager, Martin, came in to be a real full-blown sales manager, and he came from a really, really good sales training program. He was a great manager. To this day, he thinks I'm an asshole, but he knows that I can sell. And he'll self-admittedly say I can sell, but I'm an asshole. And he's not wrong. So I love the man for his truth and honesty, and I'll continue to appreciate him for the rest of my life for what he gave me. Because in that year, it was about May when he showed up, and I was doing what I'd always been doing, and I was really proud of myself about my meager income and in a furniture store. And by the end of that year, I had made $74,000, and it wasn't long before I was over $100,000 in revenue in a tiny little town where I was now generating about 30% of the revenue of the whole store. And it was the major inflection point in my life where, now I have the sales tools, the real tools, the thing that get me to do the thing without being gross and immoral in how I did it. Because it was the family business. You had to protect the integrity of your family name as much as anything else. So I explode. And that's where I got the sales bug. That's where I was like, I can.
That's right. You got bit by it. You realized, hey, I have this skill. It's kind of a natural thing. Yeah, there's training that you did, but you have a gift in it. And something about sales too. I love sports. I don't know what gave that away here on my desk, but like I love sports. Now I was never super physically gifted athletically. I played some baseball in my day, and I like playing street football, but I was not athletically gifted. But sales became my sport, right? When I was a sales rep for different companies, you look at your numbers, you can see how many touchdowns did I get, right? How many at-bats did I have? What's my percentage? How many phone calls did I make? How many appointments did I go to this week? Right? You had control over your batting average. You had control over your closing. And to me, it was never this, like, I never felt bad about selling, except for when I was with one company, because their product and service was terrible. So when I would sell it, I didn't feel good about it. And I actually quit after probably 30 days and went back to one of the companies I worked for. But I always worked for a company where I felt there was integrity there, that I would use the product myself, and I can sleep at night on my bed, on my pillow, and feel good about it. And if I didn't, I would be gone, right? So yeah, and that's how I feel with my own company. I confidently know what we offer, what we do. The money you pay us to do what we do, I can confidently land on that pillow and know we're doing the right thing. So to me, that's why sales became more natural. And I don't want to say easy, but like fun, was I'm helping people out and I get paid to do it. Like if you had the cure for cancer, you'd be door knocking, going to everyone saying, hey, does anyone in your family struggling right now with cancer? We can help them out. Why would you not want to do that? So if you have a product you really believe in, and someone doesn't get it, if the reason is just simply like they absolutely do not have the money for it, fine. Make an impression, because they will have that will change, right? Furniture store. You get a young couple in, they're looking at a mattress set, right? I worked for Sleep Number Beds, by the way, so I had a lot of these situations. Yeah. I treated the young couple, the newlyweds that couldn't afford it right now, with, the same respect, and I gave them the same presentation as if someone came in. You could tell it's a retired couple. They got 10 G's. They're about to drop on a bed. And I would treat everybody the same way, and I would teach them everything, and I wouldn't miss something. I'm not perfect, but like I really intentionally made sure that they got everything from me that they needed, and I answered all their questions. And it was really cool because this really did happen. 2 years later, because I worked there long enough where people would come in and now they saved up for it, or they got financing for it, and they came back and they saw me again because I gave them the time of day when they were that young couple that nobody wanted, the up. Right? Like, oh, Mike, you take them, whatever. It's like, oh, he'll talk to him. Yeah, I talked to them like two human beings that eventually they were in our target market to purchase, and they did. But yeah, like that's why sales to me is fun. It's exciting. If you're not excited to sell, that just means you're not in the right business. Like find the thing that you do love, right?
Well, and I think we all kind of two sides of that coin. One is that we're always selling, no matter whether or not, or certainly negotiating in life. And I was sitting with
Sell or Be Sold is a great book by Grant Cardone. Some people don't like Grant, but whether you like him or not doesn't matter. The book is great.
No, Grant Cardone is someone that I respect very deeply. I've read all his books, and The Closer Survival Guide is a big reason why I developed the concept around closing arcs. And ultimately, we were talking about this. It was with Chris Voss. He and I founded a celebrity bourbon together called
That's
The
awesome.
Difference. Yeah, it's this just gorgeous bourbons that you can't get.
Chris was on a show that we produce called Thrive More, and I think to date they have 132 episodes out. I think he's the top most downloaded episode. Chris Voss.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, his stories are just amazing. Again, it's all about stories. The people I surround myself with are people who I respect deeply in that world. And when he and I chatted, it was like, I said to him on the Fireside podcast that he was on and hosting me on, and he said, sales is a dance and closing is jujitsu. And he goes, yeah, like Chris does. Yeah, but it's pinning down the problem, not the customer. And I'm like, this is why I love you, Chris, because that's exactly the point, is that it's not about pinning down the customer. This isn't warfare. This is empathy. This is competence. This is convenience. And he goes, well, what's negotiation to you then? And I said, negotiation to me is the golden thread that weaves through all of it. And the biggest thread the biggest lesson that Chris ever taught me was that the most dangerous negotiation is the one you don't know you're in. And that's why all of these things matter so much in everything that you do, whether you're the boss, an entrepreneur running your teams, or a coworker working with a client, or another coworker, or the boss, or your wife and kids, right?
Yeah.
All of it matters.
Well, let's talk about that situation. Someone's in a negotiation, they don't realize that they're in. So in the sales version of that, you're doing I always like to call it a proposal over a quote. To me, a quote was like basically indicated they want a number. A quote, give me the quote. They just want a price. Just in their head, is this what they expected to pay? You're not in that equation. The product values, right, are not in that equation. The features and benefits are not in that equation. So it's like, I don't like to do a quote. Let's do a proposal. This is based on everything you told me today. Here's how we can help you out, right?
Yeah.
But in that negotiation, if there's something they didn't tell me yet, maybe the wife has an issue going on, or they just had a financial problem or something that they didn't talk about, or I didn't ask them about, or it didn't come up yet. So now I'm in a negotiation, right? But I don't know that there's something missing. So how can I solve for it? So that's why you really have to be a great active listener. And also, if you notice there's a hesitation, you have to be like a detective and figure it out. And I think there's no problem in sales being a little bit more blunt. Like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, like something seems off here. Like I can tell you really love it. You mentioned you love it. we're ready to go. We're sitting up here, but now we got up here and it seemed like, everyone slowed down a second. What am I missing? Right. And then they might just say, we XYZ. And now you just discovered the problem. Give me your 2 cents on it, because you're the one who brought up the idea of the biggest problem is if you don't realize you're in the negotiation.
Yeah, look, one of the greatest detectives of all time, setting Chris aside, who was an extraordinary FBI negotiator, was Columbo, right? You remember the old show Columbo?
I was going to say Columbo and to joke with you, and then,
that's right.
I know
Peter
Columbo.
Falk, and he touches the doorknob. He's like, just before I go somewhere, I just wanted to just ask you another question. It's and what I think about immediately in that instance is Chris Voss saying, don't go for the yeses, go for the nos, right? Which comes from Jim Camp, which is a great trainer in negotiation early days, one of the negotiation trainers that Chris learned from.
It's counterintuitive to what you would think, though. So what is that theory? Yeah.
And here's the power in it. People are hiding stuff from you, right? That's their job. They're to protect the vault, right? They're protecting their resources, their kids, their family, their money, their good decisions, their bad decisions, all of those things, their reputation. And ultimately, when we recognize that, when we see that, and good detectives will go, would I be crazy to think that you want to get this resolved today without any additional wasted time? And they're going to go, no, that's exactly what we want to do. We just want to get this dealt with. And you're like, fantastic. And how can we do that? And they tell you how we can do that. We're asking calibrated questions now. Chris Voss, how and what questions? What's the best path for us to get that done today? When you ask the right questions using tactics that he has discovered over the last 25 years, he's become one of the best trainers that tie a whole bunch of sales training together, from Jeffrey Gitomer to Harry J. Friedman to in our home services space, people like Joe Crisera, and there's so many greats out there, and they all have their own take. But sometimes it just takes that new angle of approach to go, aha, I got it. And I always found in the first few times I read Chris's book, Never Split the Difference, it was like, this is cool, this is flash, it's like hostage taking and violence and danger and all this stuff. But then I meet Chris at an event in Nashville, and his team is just as extraordinary as he is. And I sit there and I go, this is probably one of the most empathetic human beings I'd ever met in my life. He's gentle, he's kind. And then we went out to dinner one night a couple of years after that. And the way he treats wait staff, and the way he treats people he doesn't know, and the way he makes and focuses on people, his attention fully to understand exactly what they're talking about and giving them the space that they want just because it's Chris Voss. Was a beautiful thing to see, which made it so easy for us to enter into some of the other business arrangements that we've come to work on today. So you're
kind of picturing, like, when you hear FBI negotiator, kind of this rough and guy, like hardened, kind of jaded, like been around the block, smoking a cigarette. Like,
that's right. Yeah, Tango and Cash, right? It's like, I'm too old for this shit. Yes.
But not that at all, right? Just a great listener, personable, caring, wants to get to the root of if there's a problem, let's solve it, right?
That's it. Not compromise, but solve, right? And not
you talk about something else. I think that's a good segue, is the word frictionless. So you have a T-shirt that says frictionless on it. Is that what you're talking about? And in a sales environment, you want the least amount of friction?
Well, it started off with Roy bringing up, like, the reason why we're selling is about removing friction. And I go, okay, that's cool. And then 3 years later, I'm like digging into it, and I'm like, well, that's exactly what we're trying to do, so that it's easier for homeowners to call up a business or to step into a retail store. We're trying to remove the friction of them crossing the threshold, so to speak. And then it goes into all of the other constituent parts of the business So here, thank you for bringing this up because this is my most favorite part of this whole thing. I'm a sales guy.
You just lit up like a Christmas tree when I said
Christmas tree. Because I'm a sales guy at a Wizard of Ads marketing firm. Roy's the Wizard of Ads, and I'm one of his partners. And I'm like,
how did you guys originally connect? I had that question too, because Roy, he was the original Wizard of Ads, and now you guys both go by that. How did you guys connect and like turn this into an actual company?
He had turned it into an actual company about 25 years ago, and we have 80 partners across the world now. And all of us.
I was looking at your website. I kept scrolling. I'm like, there's 4 people on a line, and I keep scrolling. I'm like, man, this is not. I thought it was you and Roy like that, and that would have been totally perfectly fine. But you guys have quite an organization that you built. Huge team, and he built, and I'm blessed to be a part of. I'm an equal partner with all of those good people, and they all bring amazing, unique traits to the table as well. Most of them copywriting or ad strategy or media buying. I'm bringing in operational understanding and I know how to sell stuff, right? So how do I fit? Well, David Packard from Hewlett Packard once said, marketing is far too important to be left to the marketing department, and I just took that to be my gospel. So what I bring to the table is the concept of frictionless. And frictionless is 12 major components that function within a business that are creating friction, internal to the coworkers, external to the customers, that we need to address to get out of our own way. If we ever hope to accelerate profitable growth, we've got to look at these 12 things, get them resolved, but then look at the 12 things again, because as we grow, there are new problems again, right? We're adding more managers. We're changing pay structures. We're getting more inventory and having to curate that better. All of these things start to compound as you grow, just like a brand compounds its equity by getting in the hearts of customers so that their minds demand that they are the ones that they use when it comes time to buy the thing that you sell. Right. Yeah, because to me, like sales and marketing go together, peanut butter and jelly situation, but they're totally different at the same time. Like the sales process of being able to close, presenting, listening, closing, the whole thing, doing a discovery process with them. Now you got online sales, you have in-person sales, you got over the phone sales. There's more transactional. You're selling things that are $20 and under, just I need it in and out, kind of like a retail store environment. You got the longer process. I'm buying a cell phone. So now like you got to sit down and talk about the different plans and the different phones and the different specs and all that stuff. Marketing, again, totally different animal. That's what got the person's ass in the seat so you can now sell to them, right? It's the ad that they saw in the middle of the 7th inning in the game last night or whatever, right? So, but like you said, you leave it up to the marketing team, they're going to have some holes in it. So I do like that quote from, was it Hewitt?
David Packard from Hewlett Packard.
Packard.
David Packard. Yeah.
Okay, gotta get the right.
The P in HP. The P in HP. Yeah.
But anyway, so let's get into it. I mean, you guys are like, no joke, 8-figure company. I mean, that's you guys are thriving. Wizard of Ads, 8-figure company. What are some of the common denominators that you see in marketing campaigns that really work? There's got to be a couple, threads that tie it all together.
Well, to back up one step to talk about marketing and selling. Marketing are the systems, the processes, the strategies, the tactics, and the tools that you deploy to communicate with the world. Sales is a channel of communication. Advertising is a channel of communication. In advertising, there is brand awareness type of messaging, and there is sales activation type of message. In sales, there is that too in a different, slightly different framework. There's also the mechanisms of capturing leads, right? And marketing is fundamentally misunderstood, but marketing is the umbrella of all things communication, which includes sales. Just don't tell the sales department because it's an affront to their sensibilities. They are going to be mad at you if they say they're a part of marketing. because marketing is the anti-sales department, allegedly.
And they're also part of branding, which is totally different than marketing as well.
Exactly. And the most powerful branding that you can do is an extraordinary buying experience. So all of this is not sideways.
1,000%. You know what? I've never had anybody in 250 plus episodes never say it again. I don't want to misquote you on that. Talking about how the sales experience is the number one branding.
The number one branding exercise is absolutely is in every way. The experience that we are delivering is the buying experience. That is the reason why people will show up, tell the world that you matter, and insist that other people come in. And you can manufacture this in a very extraordinarily, dramatically better way than what most companies are actually doing it as.
I'm glad we hit that because, like I said, I don't think we've ever nailed it down quite like that. That sales process is because it's something that it's like trust, right? It takes a long time to build, takes 1 second to break it.
Yep.
It's the same thing with good sales. Like it takes a long time, not always long, but like it's a process. And if you do something wrong in that process and trust is broken or something goes sour, it could totally die in 1 second. So, but I think what you're talking about, I think of the brands that I like, the car brands I like, the phone I use, the computer I use, the clothing I wear. Having a good experience, whether it's in store or their website or the delivery of the product works really well, right? Amazon, I think it crushes it so well because it's 2 button clicks. It's at your door tomorrow. If you don't even like it, they just let you return it and you have 30. It's so easy, right? Yeah. Frictionless. It's so frictionless. So, but yeah, I know not to keep going and hitting on it, but I think what a lot of people forget in their business is that they are their brand. So if you're the only sales rep in your company, you are the brand, right? Good, bad, or ugly. Your experience with someone, whether they purchase from you, you're not even in a sales conversation, you are the brand. Are they going to want to work with you, right? So it's super important.
To the extension of that, Mike, is that if it's your staff that is delivering your message, your commander's intent, your mission, right, then your culture is by default your brand. It's how well you prepare them, how well you set them up for success, how simple you make it to deliver on an extraordinary buying experience. So it's the buying experience and the employee experience that we get to talk about in advertising through interesting ways that represent your brand. A logo's not your brand. It's just a symbol that you have anchoring your brand, just like an auditory logo or signature can do the same thing. Just like slogans, keywords, and other things that have us hook in and orient and go, I recognize this. It's the bell in Pavlov's dog. It's not the whole thing. The brand.
Right. You see the Apple logo, you see the Nike swoosh, whatever it is.
That's
like when you wear that product, use that product, you have a certain way you feel.
The trigger feel.
Yeah, trigger. Yep.
Yeah. So why does this all matter? It goes back to trust. You'd mentioned that trust takes time. Here's the funny thing about trust. Trust takes basically the same amount of time all the time as far as an exposure thing and a relevance thing. So if I start talking to you as a brand over and over and over again, let's say 3 times a week, every single week on TV, radio, billboards, truck wraps, shopping experiences, internet, social media, all of the things, all of the places that one might interface with your brand, an impression. If I start doing that and I do it in a way that orients or anchors to a feeling, not know, like, or trust, but laugh, cry, or make you angry, not angry with you, but angry with the injustice of something, right? Now you've started the relationship well before you ever had an exchange, right? Mm-hmm. And here's where it gets even crazier. Those people have already decided to buy from you. They just haven't needed to buy your thing yet, right? So you've got all these people out in the universe that have already chosen to buy from you when you have a salient message, a high impact message at repetition. And why does this matter? Well, because it's the same thing when it comes to training. It's the same thing when your wife is saying she wants you to show up consistently. It's the same thing when your coworkers want to see that the system in which you deliver your solution stays true and consistent so that they can feel as though they're not betraying themselves when they're telling a customer how it's going to go, right?
Yeah.
All of these things are marketing, and all of them represent your brand. And it's what you tolerate to let happen and not let happen that determine how successful and powerful your brand's going to be. And that matters in your business and in your personal life. And these are the friction points that I talk about. These are the things to say, hey, pay attention to these things. And you're like 80% further along than when you're not paying attention to these things, because a lot of these things are developed and built out of good intentions.
Right.
But the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So that's not the only piece of this equation, right? We have to have something better than intent. We have to have, so my intent was, let's tug on these things. And I spent 8 years tugging on them to go, what are the things? It started at 18 and I knocked that down to 12 in the second iteration of the book that is now getting into its final version. So very cool. Very exciting to see, because all of this informs what the brand is going to be, which makes my job easier because I get paid on growth.
That's right. Did you have a pivotal moment in your career where it just clicked for you, or you knew like this is the thing you definitely want to run with? Because I'm sure when you're good in sales, I'm gonna do this for a long time. You got into marketing, that was interesting to you. But was there like a pivotal moment where you knew like this was your baby?
2021, it was about May. COVID was full force at that. No, it was 2020. Sorry. Full force COVID, first round. We're now sequestered in our houses. We're all trying to figure things out. And I land a really, 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 really big sale, the biggest sale in the history of the company. And
were you in Phoenix at the time?
No, I'm sitting in Halifax, Nova Scotia. At that time, the client is in the south part of the U.S. And it came from a culmination of learning and understanding and growing and doing the things I need to do this thing at a really big way. Well, I realized this is what I was meant to do, and I need to build my systems and operations around this. And it wasn't because of the big sale. It was just that aha moment of this. There's a level of value here that I had not yet appreciated about the Wizard of Ads. And it gave me subconscious permission to step into it and go, I can do the thing that I do the best and serve people at an incredibly high level by building the solution that I build, which fundamentally is a lot of me at the top, the big thinking, the working on your business, the way that you look at how you're going to structure and roll out your business, but my team. The team of creative writers and ad strategists, the team of media negotiators. It's
like the machine behind you, right? Like you make the sale, you get this client, you're going to say, hey, we're going to help you out with your marketing.
Right.
And there's this huge machine that makes it happen. It's not just one person. It's not little sliver. It's this whole collective.
And that's it. And that's what Roy had built, right? I was just coming of age in the business to realize Roy had built something so profoundly brilliant that I could then take it to the next level, not independently, but collectively with the brilliant people that he has brought into our universe, and I now get to call partners.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I love it. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I do want to give some love to our sponsors. We're talking about marketing and branding. Let's do a little bit of that right now. SocialChameleon.us. You press record, we handle the rest. Social Chameleon is a podcast agency that I happen to be running. And so if you're an entrepreneur, a B2B, and you're looking to share your story and build your brand through your podcast, check out socialchameleon.us. And we are recording this on Riverside right now, riverside.fm. We use Riverside because I trust them for high quality video, audio. They're reliable. They got a great support team. I've only needed to use that support team a few times, and every time that I reach out to them. They're very responsive. And the audio version, so we appreciate you guys if you're tuning in on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the audio version of this podcast. We do that distribution on Libsyn.com, Libsyn.com. So thank you to our sponsors and our affiliates. I know we got to get you on to your next one here, but do you have time kind of put a bow on this? Is there anything we didn't talk about that you're like, man, Mike, I wanted to get this out today?
I really appreciate this conversation. I think that there is a real optimism in the marketplace today, regardless of some of the ups and downs and the possibly uncertainties of the world. I am feeling incredibly optimistic about what the future holds for people who are really ready to tuck in and get to work. It's not going to be easy, but it is going to be rewarding, and people are looking for that right now. We're in a trust deficit, not because of any specific thing, but because of the general sentiment of the industry, right, or of the market right now, of the society that we're in. Lean into that and be the most trustworthy people and serve people at a high level. And I'm telling you, it has always, always, always turned out great for those people who are caring for others.
Yeah, I love that, man. We just met today for the first time. So if you guys are listening to this and you're like, oh, Mike and Ryan, like we are connected, know each other. Like we just met today through a recommendation. So one of the first things I knew right up before we even pressed record today was you were just like, hey, how you doing, man? How's your day going? Like you just had this, you cared about me before we were doing a podcast. Like you just wanted to know how I was doing. And I could tell like in your story, the reason that you have been successful is it goes back to that family business. You're taking care of people the same way your grandpa, your dad, your family took care of people at that store. That's how you're still doing it today in 2025. It's a different avenue. It's a different arena, but you're still you. Like that's your brand. And like Chris Voss, again, he's highly successful, but he doesn't walk around with that arrogance. It's like he's himself. He's his brand. And I think you got a great thing going. Your brand is great. And obviously you've been super intentional about it. So either you got us all fooled or you're just a great guy. I think I'm going to go with the latter. I think you're a great guy. So I appreciate you being on the show. I don't have one of my BGBG mugs, so I failed myself right now, but I normally have it. BGBG means be great and be grateful. And I'm grateful for you being on the show today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm as grateful as well.
Cheers, my man. Thanks.